The poem by Oe no Asatsuna's Family Nun, Volume 27. Once upon a time, during the reign of Emperor Murakami, there was a scholar named Oe no Asatsuna. He was an outstanding student and served publicly with great dedication, eventually becoming a minister. He lived to be over 70 years old before passing away. His family owned properties in Nijo and Kyogoku, from which the view of the eastern river was extensive and the moon appeared beautifully. After Asatsuna's death, several years later, on the night of the 15th of August, when the moon was particularly bright, a group of more than 10 people who loved poetry decided to visit Asatsuna's former home to enjoy the moonlight. They found the house old and desolate, with the buildings collapsed and only the smokehouse remaining. Despite this, they gathered among the ruins, reciting poetry and enjoying the moonlight. One of the poems they recited was Tasa Piden Ni Tingqiu Yueshan Chang'an Bai Chilo, a poem from the Tang Dynasty by Bai Jui, composed on the 15th of August during the full moon. As they were reminiscing about Asatsuna's subtle and refined literary style, an old nun appeared from the direction of the ox and tiger, a reference to the hours in the traditional time system, and asked, "Who are you who have come to visit?" They replied, "We have come to see the moon." "And who are you?" The nun responded, "I am the only person remaining who served the late minister. All the men and women who served here have died, and I am left alone, unaware of what might happen next." Hearing this, the poetry enthusiasts felt great pity and were moved by the nun's situation. Some of them even cried. The nun continued, "Indeed, the minister once composed the line, 'The moon ascends to the 100-foot tower in Chang'an.' Long ago, the late minister also composed poems about the moon reaching the height of a 100-foot tower. It does not seem right that the moon should ascend to a tower." Hearing this, the people wept even more, deeply touched by the nun's words. When asked what her relationship was with the late minister, the nun explained, "I was a servant at the late minister's home. It is said that he often mentioned such things, and thus I faintly remember them." The people spent the entire night talking with the nun and returned at dawn, deeply moved. Reflecting on this, the story suggests that the family traditions of Asatsuna were truly profound, and this seemingly futile conversation with the nun conveyed the depth of Asatsuna's literary spirit. Thus, the story has been passed down. The poem revealed in a dream by the deity, volume 28. Once upon a time, there was a poem composed by the deity. Eastward and westward, clouds are faint. In February and March, the days are slow. People of later generations recited this poem, but there was no one who truly understood its meaning. A person named Dakak visited the shrine in Kitano and recited this poem. That night, a distinguished and extraordinary person appeared in his dream and said, "Do you know how to read this poem?" The person, feeling awe and uncertainty, replied that he did not understand. The visitor then instructed, one should read it as, "Eastward, westward, the clouds stretch far away. In Kisaragi, the days are slow and bright." Upon waking, the person performed his rites of reverence and left. It is said that the deity often revealed such poems in dreams from ancient times. Thus, the story has been passed down. The poem by Fujiwara no Sukeyoshi and the criticism by Fujiwara no Yoshitada, Volume 29. Once upon a time, there was a scholar named Fujiwara no Sukeyoshi. The poems to be written on the color paper for the screens in the residence of the Takatsukasa family were requested from skilled scholars, and Sukeyoshi's poems were among those selected. At that time, there was a person named Fujiwara no Yoshitada, who was known for his learning and talent. When the selection of poems was being made, Yoshitada, who was displeased with Sukeyoshi's poems, remarked that the poems composed by Sukeyoshi are quite unusual and contain characters that are not in the standard tone but in a different tone. They are difficult and full of errors. However, Sukeyoshi's poems were included because of his position and the favor he received. At that time, Sukeyoshi was serving as a provincial governor. When the Minister of the Interior heard this, he expressed his dissatisfaction, stating that all the poems were exquisite and that there was no personal bias in their selection. Consequently, the Minister of the Interior did not understand Yoshitada's comments and summoned him, saying, "Why are you causing trouble by making such unfounded criticisms?" Yoshitada, feeling fearful, withdrew and was eventually pardoned in March of the following year. In addition, Yoshitada composed a poem for a certain lady. With the blue dye, the curse woven into the fabric. The spring has passed without dissolving it. Afterwards, there were no further instructions or comments on this matter. Reflecting on this, it seems that Yoshitada's criticism was likely a result of personal biases rather than an objective assessment. It is said that the Minister of the Interior was known for his straightforwardness, and Yoshitada's criticisms were perceived as unjust. It is also said that Sukeyoshi's reputation may have been affected by these criticisms, which might not have been a true reflection of his talents. Thus, the story has been passed down. The poem by Fujiwara no Toshi and the Appointment as Governor of Echizen, Volume 30. Once upon a time, there was a person named Fujiwara no Toshi. During the reign of Emperor Ichijo, he was hoping to become a provincial governor, as requested by the Minister of the Interior. However, due to the absence of a vacant post at the time of the appointment, his wish was not fulfilled. Afterwards, lamenting this situation, Toshi, although not a scholar, was known for his literary talents. He composed a petition and submitted it to a court lady. The petition included the following lines: "Hard study in the cold night, crimson tears wet my collar. After the appointment, I see the azure sky in the morning." The court lady intended to present this petition, but at that time the emperor was asleep and did not see it. Meanwhile, Fujiwara no Michinaga, who was then the regent, thought that this matter should be attended to and sent the petition for review. Since the emperor had not seen the petition, there was no response. The regent inquired about this matter, and the court lady explained that the emperor had not seen it because he was asleep. Therefore, the regent retrieved the petition and showed it to the emperor. The emperor was deeply moved by the lines. As a result, Fujiwara no Toshi, who was a suitable candidate, was appointed as the governor of Echizen, replacing Fujiwara no Kunimori, who was originally to be appointed. This story is passed down as an example of how the moving quality of Toshi's petition influenced his appointment. Thus, the story has been passed down. Shad, The Tale of the Waka, composed by Lady Ice for the folding screen of Emperor Engi. Once upon a time, during the reign of Emperor Engi I, he ordered a folding screen to be made as a gift for his son's coming-of-age ceremony, specifically for the occasion of the boy's hakama wearing. The emperor also commanded, "Each of you compose a waka poem and present it," and so the courtiers composed their poems and offered them to the emperor. He had the poems written by the hand of Ono no Michikaze, who was renowned for his calligraphy. On the panel of the spring scene, there was an illustration of a mountain path with women's carriages passing under blooming cherry trees. For this panel, there was no accompanying poem, as the emperor, pondering the scene, did not think of a fitting one. When Michikaze approached with the screen, he found no poem had been provided for that section. The emperor, upon seeing it, said, "What will be done with this? It is already today, and no one can suddenly compose a poem for this now. How unfortunate that such a beautiful scene remains without a poem." After some contemplation, the emperor summoned Fujiwara no Kurihira, a courtier and captain of the guards. The emperor ordered him, "Go to Lady Ise at once and tell her there is such a matter. Please compose a waka for us." The reason Kurihira was sent was because his refined manners and noble bearing made him seem the least likely to cause embarrassment to Lady Ice. The emperor, considering her reputation, must have thought carefully about selecting the right envoy. Lady Ice was a woman of extraordinary talent. She was the daughter of Tadafusa, the governor of Yamato, and during the reign of Emperor Teijin II, she had served at court. The emperor had favored her greatly, and she had become one of his concubines. Her beauty and refined demeanor were remarkable, and her skill in composing waka was said to be comparable to the renowned poets Yukinari III and Tsurayuki IV. After the emperor became a monk and retired to Uchiyama V, Lady Ise, finding the world cold and indifferent, lived quietly in her home, reflecting deeply on her life. While she was lost in melancholy thoughts, she heard the sound of footsteps approaching from the gate. A man in court robes entered the residence, and as she wondered who it might be, she soon realized it was Kurihira. Startled and confused, she sent someone to ask what had brought him there. Korahira, having received his orders, made his way to Lady Ice's house, which was located near Gojo Bridge. The garden was densely shaded by trees, yet adorned with exquisite flowers. Moss and green sand covered the ground, giving the garden a serene beauty. Since it was the third month of the year, the cherry blossoms in the garden were in full bloom. The south side of the mansion was covered with a tattered bamboo screen, adding an air of mystery and antiquity. Korahira stood by the side corridor, sending word, "I am Korahira, a messenger from the imperial palace." A young servant appeared and said, "Please, come inside." Korahira approached the southern veranda of the main hall, where an old lady's voice called from inside, "Please, step within." Lifting the screen, Korahira peered inside and saw a well-used screen decorated with withered wood motifs standing in the main hall. A carefully arranged lacquered writing desk stood nearby, along with an old but elegant folding screen. Korahira took in the atmosphere, noting the refinement of the setting, and was particularly struck by the scent of incense faintly drifting through the room. The women who attended Lady Ice were dressed in exquisite robes, their sleeves barely visible through the bamboo screen. Though feeling somewhat shy, Korahira stepped closer to the screen and respectfully conveyed his message. "I bring a message from the palace. For the coming-of-age ceremony of the young prince, a folding screen has been prepared, and the courtiers have composed Waka poems to be inscribed on it. However, for the cherry blossom panel, no poem has been provided. It is already late in the day, and no one is available to compose one now. Therefore, we humbly ask if you could compose a waka to accompany the scene." Startled by the sudden request, Lady East replied, "How can this be? Why did they not tell me earlier? How could I ever compare with poets like Yukinari and Tsurayuki? Such a sudden request is truly unreasonable. I had no time to prepare," she murmured softly, her words full of grace and sorrow. Korahira, listening, thought, "There is indeed such a remarkable person in this world." After a short while, a young boy entered, carrying a silver sake cup. He presented it through the bamboo screen. At first, Korahira was puzzled, but soon realized that the boy had been instructed to serve him wine. He accepted the cup and drank, even as the boy, with a charming demeanor, poured him more. Though he protested, saying it was enough, the boy continued pouring, as if knowing Korahira was fond of wine. After several rounds of drinking, Korra felt quite tipsy. The women, noticing his flushed face, admired how the color of his cheeks seemed to blend with the blooming cherry blossoms in the garden. After some time, Lady Ice's attendants brought out a purple silk paper upon which a waka had been written, carefully wrapped in matching silk. She also sent a set of women's clothing, including a red layered karaginu robe, an embroidered overskirt, and a deep-colored hakama. The colors were vivid and the craftsmanship exquisite. Korahira, surprised by the unexpected generosity, took the offerings and prepared to leave. As he left, the women of the household watched him with admiration, their eyes following him as he walked gracefully away. Even after he had left, they continued to speak of his dignified and elegant manner. When Korahira returned to the palace, Emperor Engi was already impatiently awaiting his return. Upon hearing the sound of Korahira's arrival, the emperor immediately summoned him. Michikaze, brush in hand, was standing by, ready to inscribe the waka. Korahira, having completed his mission, presented the letter to the emperor. Upon reading it, the emperor was delighted. The poem was written with such elegance that it did not pale in comparison to Michikaze's renowned calligraphy. Lady Ace had composed the following waka. "Without losing a single petal, how I long to see the flowers of this familiar place bloom again, even if it means parting with those who return no more." The emperor, deeply moved, shared the poem with the courtiers, who all praised its beauty and skill. Lady Issa's poem, with its perfect blend of elegance and grace, was inscribed onto the screen by Mishikaze. Thus, her reputation as a masterful poet was further confirmed.